We have next our animal control, and we have Vicki Faulkner here today to go over the...
Good afternoon, Ms. Faulkner.
Good afternoon.
Hey, good to see
Hi,
you.
thank you guys for having us. I'm basically going to go over, I set ours up to be the future of the animals, because that's kind of where I have to direct my focus, is the animals of Wayne County. The hours of operation for the shelter are Monday through Friday from 12 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. and the first and third Saturday from 10 to 12. And of course, I have an officer on call every day for 24 hours a day. You just have to call 911 for that. That would include bites, aggressive dogs. They don't go out on just a regular basic stray dog or anything like that after hours. It's just emergency calls only.
Excuse me, is that a recent change in regards to the Saturday hours?
Yes, they changed January 1st.
January the 1st. Well, is that working out pretty well for Saturdays, the 2 hours, first and third?
Yes, sir. They actually, when we were open every Saturday, it was the lowest day for adoptions. We did a 6-month total looking at the percentages, and Saturday was the lowest. We did not have a flow. So we've actually, since we went back to the first and third, the number of people that are coming in is more, and we're adopting out more on that. Mainly it's the third Saturday, because I have the Humane Society there also to do the spay and neuter vouchers.
Right.
But the number of people that are coming in and adopting has went up with just those 2 days.
Great. The percentage was really low, wasn't it, Mr. Smith? I can't remember what it was.
And that's part of what they looked at and was given to the advisory committee, was kind of looking at the business aspect of it, of the cost per hour to operate the shelter. And the staff's recommendation, advisory board, was that those Saturdays we were not getting traffic.
It was basically like 12% was like a Saturday.
So that's
it was
building now.
Yes, it's going up now. I haven't done since we just started in January.
And that's
Yes,
great.
sir.
That's great.
The shelter has 11 full-time employees, and we have 1 part-time right now, and I have 2 part-time that I'm actually getting ready to interview for. And we're broke down through 3 sections, which would be the administrative staff, the officers, and the shelter staff, and that is where the 2 new part-times will go into the shelter. That will help to alleviate some of the comp time for the animal control department. They will help us to clean on weekends, and they'll be there through the busiest times of the day. We're looking at like 12 to 2 for one of them, and like 4 to 6 to help open up the building when the people are coming in at noon to start adoptions, and then from 4 to 6 it will help us to close down the building. The animal control, when I started with animal control in 2007, we went out, we did rabies control, they did animal population, and they did euthanasia. That was basically what the animal control department did in 07, 08. Now we have grown and we do outreach. We try to go out and do some reach in the community. I go out to the schools and speak to the students. I do the 7th grade career fair every year. We do the rabies control still, which is going out, we canvass the neighborhoods. If we have a problem with a lot of stray dogs or something, we go to the neighborhoods and ask them, look for the proof of the rabies vaccinations. Euthanasia, we'll talk about a little bit more later. That's one of the biggest for us right now that our department has. Investigations, that is my officers that are in the field. They will investigate everything from animal cruelty to neglect and all the way to puppy mills and everything to that nature. Animal care, that mainly falls into my shelter department. Since we have an adoption program now, we have vaccination programs, that has grown for them. They have to make sure every day they're checking that. The animal adoption and rescue, of course, that's big. We need to get as many adopted and rescued as we can. And then the education, that goes with us with the outreach, trying to get pamphlets out, try to get responsible ownership information out, and meet with the public and let them know exactly what responsible would be, and come adopt from us. It's got vaccinations and everything that way. The investigations, like I said, they can go cruelty and neglect, puppy mill, and abandonment. Abandonment is huge right now. People are just leaving them alongside the roads. They're leaving them at mailboxes and Walmart parking lots, just boxes of kittens or puppies. So if I can go back and prove it, it is something I can charge for. If a neighbor sees somebody throw a dog out of their car and we can get it from the license plate, it can have charges from that. But right now there's not a whole lot because they're just leaving them along. Somebody's got to get their mail today and there's a box of kittens sitting there. The animal care, as I stated, the impound, when we impound an animal, it is given a preventative wormer, and it is also given a distemper parvo and a kennel cough vaccination. That is an incoming vaccination program, and a lot of counties do not have that. It helps to alleviate any disease within the animals in the shelter. Some of those can take effect as soon as a little bit gets into their system. Some take a day or two. The daily possible interaction. We need to try and interact with these animals and try to get them suitable for adoptable. If you're getting stray animals, sometimes they're not as friendly as Fluffy was when you come in to adopt it. Overall health care is to keep our eyes on them every day. We have to make sure nothing changes with them. They don't get sick, that there's nothing, they don't have an injury, they jump on a cage, rip a toenail. Some of them with stress, they lose their hair, they'll chew on their tails. So we just have to, we have to walk through, we've got a form, and they just notate every day what the overall health care of the animal is. The adoption and rescue, that's basically how anything that leaves the building rather than being redeemed, that's how there's an adoption candidate, and it can either go to rescue or it would be to the shelter, which would be an adoption from our end of it. If it's a rescue, they would go to the rescue transport the animal, and it would go to their new home from there. If it goes from the shelter, it goes from us straight to the new home. That would be an adoption through us. The rescues right now, as long as they're 501c3 registered and everything, they can pull. There's a no pull fee for that. They can pull the dogs. They get them spayed, they get all their medical care, and then they find suitable homes for them. It opens up some of the pens for us at the shelter. Adoptions for us, they will receive, within the last 2 years, we've had 3 of us certified to give rabies vaccinations. So now if they're over 4 months, they can receive that rabies vaccination. The process is... it's pretty lengthy. I don't want just anybody coming in to adopt a dog. So for us, Frida, the application process would be, the first step is to come in and visit the shelter. If they pick out an animal they want, we have to look at the date on whether it's available or not. They fill out an application. The staff will then take a look at that application. If there's anything on it that would give us reason to deny that application, whether they don't answer, there's a spay and neuter question on there. If they answer no, they're not going to get them spayed or neutered, that's an automatic denial. We call the landlords. If they rent their property, we call the landlord and try to get up with them to make sure they can have that breed or they can even have a pet. We have found before that was in there, people were coming in, they'd adopt them, take them home, the landlord wouldn't let them have it, they were bringing it back. And that's hard on the animal, that's hard on the numbers for us also. Vet, if they don't have a vet or if they have other animals and have no vet on there, then that's a denial, because if they're not taking care of the one they have, they're not going to take, what's the chances of taking care of the new one that they would be trying to get? And then the AACO verification at the end of that, we call the officer that would work that area, if he's not in the building, to find out if he's had any complaints around this address matching the dogs that would be described as their animals. If there is, then we take that step and ask that, we ask the officer, we go a little bit further into the investigation.
Question. Are you using GIS? Are you getting that information filed if you have an officer reporting so we can get an idea of in the counties where it might be?
That is in discussions on the 311 system about complaints and about logging complaints and even staff logs. So that's part of the discussion with Chip. We're talking about that. But as far as it being entered the GIS system, we're not there yet. As far as I don't believe we have that.
That's one supplemental package we talked about a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and it's part of
I think that might help
she has to add to that we can do that, but
I think that might help you. I really do. Thank you.
Then once the adoption is, if it's approved, the adoption process would be, as I stated, if they're over 4 months of age, they receive the rabies shot on the premises. That way there's no going back to look for it. I'm not sending anything out that is not vaccinated against rabies. They receive a microchip with their adoption, and then they are given all the paperwork with the prior vaccinations. If we have a history, if it was an owner surrender, they get all that paperwork. Plus, with us giving the 2, it'd be just like their puppy shot. When we give them their incoming vaccinations, they get that paperwork so they can take it to their vet and start their records.
Do you implant the microchip?
Yes, sir. As long as it is my animal at the shelter, I can do that. I cannot do a microchip clinic because that would be practice in medicine. But my animal, because the animal is still a Wayne County property when that microchip is
Do you
in
charge for that?
It comes with their adoption fee, which is $50. Okay. If a rescue or anybody wants one, then it's $25 because it's still my animal.
Okay.
The education, these are all the ways that I try to get the education out. I take pamphlets. I try to hold classes, like I said, with the schools. My theory is try to teach the up and coming. It's hard to teach an older dog new tricks, so teach the child as they come up, and then they may have the ability to be a responsible pet owner. Word of mouth, social media, it's all in there with the word of mouth. Public speaking, as much as I can get out or I can get the staff out, that's how I try. And we are looking at doing some videos that they have to watch before they can adopt on animal care and just the ownership of an animal. The outreach is off-site adoptions. We try to do as many as we can. With the Saturday hours going back to just 2, that gives us a little bit more ability to get out on Saturdays and do some of these. And with that, you get public contact because we're out all over the county. The Rabies Clinic is coming up in April. That gets us out there pretty, we do 5 clinics over a 2-day period, 2 Saturdays. So it gets us out, the public realizes we're out there, and it gets those rabies vaccinations into animals that may not be going to the vet that often. The goals for the shelter, right now one of our biggest goals is I'd like to have everything spayed and neutered before it leaves the facility. It'll make it a lot easier on trying to keep up with the animal to make sure that it is getting done. The older dogs, it won't be a problem because we can move those out and get them done. Younger ones, we're looking at doing like a deposit and have them make a deposit on the dog. It's still like in foster until they get it spayed and neutered. And then once it's spayed and neutered, they can't have it if it's under 5 months of age. The budget, our budget last year was $661,000. It is all funded by the county. Our revenues usually come in right about $57,000. Now that doesn't include, that's what I estimate for my revenues to be. Sometimes there's donations that come in for other things, but that is what the revenues, and that would include my adoption fees, boarding fees, anything to that nature. The upcoming budgets, it's going to equal some cutbacks. Some of the places that, with me, that this is where they would come out, is if the medication, if I had to cut back on medicating the dogs or their vaccination program, I'm afraid of disease outbreak in the shelter. Some of the training for the guys, and just supplies in general for the shelter. The state has mandated that I need to replace all of the dog boxes on the back of my trucks with containments that are actually chassis mounted and have heating and air in them.
You've got to be kidding.
No, sir, I am not.
And that's a state mandate.
My inspector looks at our boxes every time she comes in. So, yes, it's coming. They're about $12,000 a piece.
And we've been looking at those companies. That's what.
Was that a statute that was passed? A law?
Mm-hmm.
First you've heard of it. Please check on that. We might need to talk to our legislators.
They can be, and they can be remounted. Basically, like what I looked at this year was I have 2 trucks that are 150,000 miles. I looked at replacing 2 trucks with the actual, they won't have a bed on them when I buy them. Getting the mounted truck bed put on it. But they can be removed and put onto the trucks. They won't, once I buy that box, it should be, it can be remounted for years afterwards.
But it's a $12,000 expense.
Yes.
What's the deadline on that? Is there a deadline on that?
2015, 2016.
So
It's when it's mandated.
Yeah, so we've looked at trying to phase it.
I'm phasing. I did 2 this year.
No, we need to look to eliminate it.
Well, if we can eliminate it, we're looking to phase it in.
Okay.
So,
The laws, the animal control is mandated by local ordinances, state statutes, and when we go to different type of court cases, federal laws can fall in with that. The stats for 2012, that is just the graph of it. The breakdown for 2012 is 6,802 animals were impounded, 2,551 were adopted, rescued, redeemed, or other, and 4,251 were euthanized for 2012.
How many were adopted?
2,551 were either adopted, rescued, redeemed, or that includes some stuff that was released in the wild, possums, something to that nature. Because they get in my cat trap, so I have to release them back. There's probably a possum colony in the city by now.
Hopefully they're not being adopted.
No, I'm not adopting out. I try. Then the next one, that's just kind of a breakdown for everybody from 2008 to 2012. You can the numbers. 2010 was the busiest year for impounds. The pink is what was impounded. The red is what was euthanized. Turquoise is what was adopted. The light green would have been rescued, and the lime green is what was redeemed. Redeemed is what was returned back to the owner if it got loose and they came back to get it.
Yes? I'm sorry.
Question.
Mr. Pate?
I bragged on you yesterday, I'm gonna brag on you again today. What you guys did with us, $43 last week, was outstanding. And
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank
And the
you.
meeting we had the other day, when we had the folks from the rescue groups there, what the outreach to them, I thought was very, very important. And I'm gonna say that to continue, because some great ideas came out of that meeting. And one I forgot to mention yesterday was Joe's idea about the general mailbox. I'd really like to see that happen. And, because I still get some other emails aside from that. Could you talk about a little bit about how we're changing our volunteer program?
Sure. The volunteer program right now is basically, I discontinued it about 5 months ago.
We heard.
I had very good reason why I had done that. When we were having the disease problem at the shelter, talking to some of the state vets, a lot of the habitual through the other shelters was the volunteers. When they're walking the dogs, when they were playing with the dogs, they weren't thinking about where the disease could be on them. They were letting dogs rub noses. The dogs, if it was distemper, a lot of the diseases can shed through their fur. So even if they're not runny nose or runny eyes, if it touched their body with their fur, they could now have that disease on them and can contract it to another animal. So with the board and with Mr. Smith and Mr. Gurley, we chose to discontinue it for a while to see where we went. Up until about a month ago, I've had, since I discontinued the volunteer program, I have had nothing sick in the shelter. Please knock on every piece of wood you can find. I did have some rescues come in. They were trying to temperament test. They were taking dogs and just taking them outside and try to walk them together. 2 days later, I had puppies sick in the puppy, or they had some that were sick in the puppy room. Was not. It was just more, could have been parvo or worms, but they still got sick. They were still sick. So, as to the new volunteer program, I have finished the manual, and I have Mr. Pate and them that was at the meeting I had the other week. It will now be a very structured. When I get it restarted, I told them it could be May 1st till we get through budget and everything else. It will be very structured. They will have to go through an orientation. It could be lengthy, and I want to weed out the ones that just think they want to come in and volunteer. They're going to learn about the euthanasia. They're going to learn about everything that goes on there. That way, if their heart isn't really there, they don't come back, per se. They will sign in and out. They will have a schedule of what they may do. They may not touch an animal today. Tomorrow, they could walk a dog, but today they could be doing clerical work with Frida. It's not always going to be, oh, I get to go in and play with the little fluffy puppies or the kittens. There's other things through the shelter that are needed to make the shelter run properly, and that's where I need to focus on that also. So that's where the new volunteer program will go. They will have to do 12 hours a month. If they don't, they will be dismissed. If they break any of the rules that are through the volunteer program, they will be dismissed. Any questions? Was that?
We're doing that because we've got to do two things that are very important. One is protect the animals and protect the public health.
Exactly.
And that's paramount. And so that's the reason we're going this direction. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Vicki, when she, about the second slide, she used the term, and some of you, I think, smiled and picked up on it. She said, my animals. And I think that's important because the staff that's there care about those animals. It becomes second nature. I hear them over. Joe's heard it. Our animals, my animals, they take care of them. And they care about the public. I just had to say that. I just think that's so important because they care about them and we support what they do.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
One comment before you leave.
Yes, sir.
On the animal control 2008, 2012. On page 6 here of my handout. You don't have to go back through it. I'm using that in comparison to the education block that you gave me, where it says education, pamphlets, classes, word of mouth, public speaking, then you said videos. As we know here, we have a perfect way to reduce euthanizing these animals. We have a perfect way of doing that, as you had a perfect way of reducing the volunteers in your system to become perfect, basically. You said knock on wood. And you said they learn about, they will learn about this before we can do this again. They will learn about this before we can do it again. We have the perfect opportunity with our TV and our video and our system right now in this county. I don't know what our viewing numbers are, but if we can just reduce putting animals to death, if we can reduce the adoption, the rescue, if we can reduce those kittens being put out, we can do that by getting you and Barbara together and Wayne and making it a sure thing every week where there's at least an hour on TV somewhere about you teaching the public how you're teaching the nose rubbing. Have the public to recognize as you are having your teaching staff teach these volunteers that'll be coming back. Let's teach the people so when they see it on TV, they're getting their kids together at the TV. They're getting their kids to say, look at this. It's a learning channel. And then all of a sudden you start seeing these putting these animals to sleep, and you start seeing this disease, and you start seeing people actually caring more about their animals.
I agree.
And it starts there. And I think
They've started.
Mr. Smith,
They have started
I
that.
think we've got a perfect way of doing this now.
Yeah. We can grow it. They've started Frida, some others, they have animals on there.
I
We
like
do
to
the
see
pets
you
of the
work it.
week every
So
week.
do-
Wayne
every
comes
Are you
out.
doing it already every week?
They come out, they do the pets of the week. I go on and talk about spaying and neutering and everything. They do we kind of look at the pet of the week, and then I kind of just talk a little bit. It's not an hour segment, it's just a couple minutes.
Well, let's go to teaching.
Okay,
Yeah.
Let's
Good idea.
use what you're putting together and go to teaching.
okay,
And let's make it a teaching moment for those who are watching us.
okay.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.